Inspired by the life of the savvy and ambitious Colombian businesswoman Griselda Blanco comes a new Netflix original limited series. Griselda tells the story of a devoted mother who, with her lethal blend of charm and relentless savagery, creates one of the most powerful cartels in history. Witness Sofia Vergara's captivating transformation into the godmother of the underworld. Griselda, now streaming only on Netflix.
Hello and happy Halloween! Welcome to another episode of Before My Time on this wickedly evil, chilling night. I hope you're all having way too much candy, a little too much bourbon, and a whole lot of fun. And thank you for joining us as we are about to talk about the 100th year anniversary of Nosferatu.
We're here to entertain you. We'll sing your songs for good times, the best times. You can't go wrong. We'll two-step, a new step. It won't be long when the Dixielands are playing. Soon you'll be swaying, so come on, sing along.
It's Halloween. We're releasing this a day early. It's Halloween, and you had the idea of visiting the German Expressionist. Oh my God, I can't say words. You talk. What are we talking about?
We are talking about the German Expressionist horror film Nosferatu. It is a silent film from 1922, and that is right. It is the 100th year anniversary of this film.
That is correct. 100 years of Nosferatu, which is essentially just the first Dracula adaptation, but legally not Dracula.
Yeah, no, they were like, this is not Dracula, but it totally was Dracula. And then they got sued, and they were like, that's Dracula. And they're like, no, it's not. And then they try to ruin all the films because they were like, get rid of your Dracula. That's not our Dracula. And then they're like, haha, our Dracula, which is not Dracula, survived. And here we are 100 years later talking about it.
Yeah, they're like, how can you say that's Count Dracula? That's Count Orloff. Or what?
It is, yeah, Orlok. Yeah, Nosferatu is a silent film in 1922, and it is an unofficial adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, which was a 1897 novel. So they made this film, and it was made by F.W. Murnau. I'm guessing I'm pronouncing that right. Who knows? They did get sued. Stoker's widow, I think Florine, sued them saying, no, I already said it was Dracula. And the court ruling was basically that all copies needed to be destroyed. And they did try to do that, but there was already world distribution. And so there are films that survived. But there are, now I guess, there are different versions and different cuts, because obviously there was not a DVD going around of Nosferatu with like director's cut, behind the scenes. And so it was like whatever, they actually had the different versions that got distributed. So there are like slight differences in some of the versions, which I don't know what they are. It's not really that important.
All I know is I watched the hour and 3 minute version last night.
You will never get that time back.
It's not terrible.
It's not. No, there's some really cool shots and stuff. But anyways, let's get into just kind of like the cast of what's going on. So we already said the Dracula character is Count Orlok, and he's played by Max Schreck, which is funny because the German word Schreck actually means fear or fright. So there was a lot of rumors that this actor, Max Schreck, was like, folklore says he really was a vampire, and people on set said he did like really bizarre things and whatnot. And they actually made a movie about that.
Shadow of the Vampire.
Yeah, Shadow of the Vampire.
Willem Dafoe played
Thank you.
Max, and John Malkovich played the director. In that film, the director knowingly hires a vampire to play his vampire in the movie, and has to constantly cover up the fact that his lead actor / vampire is killing most of his cast and crew. And then it implies that maybe the cinematic demise that we see at the end of Nosferatu was actually him just killing the vampire at the end of production. It is clearly a giant fantastical movie because I'm pretty sure Max Schreck did a few films after.
Yeah, he did,
Nosferatu.
and before. No, it's obviously that's not how it went down. That movie came out in 2000, which I thought was fun. William Dafoe got nominated for Best Supporting Actor in that movie, and then they were nominated for the Best Makeup that year, but they lost to The Grinch.
I don't know if I agree with that.
But you know what? The Grinch, if you really think about it, The Grinch had some great, like, think about all those Who's. All those prosthetic
That is
little
true.
noses that they had to do. And The Grinch
I think
himself,
my problem is that I
makeup-
think the Grinches terrify me. Like, I think the makeup on the live action Who's is really unsettling. It's like, what is that phrase? Uncanny Valley. There's just something where it's like, oh, I don't like how this looks.
Fair enough. And you're okay with the way that Nosferatu looks?
Yeah.
It's like the most terrifying thing ever. Oh my gosh. For those of you who don't know what Count Orlok looks like in Nosferatu, A, Google it, and B, you're never going to sleep again. He's got more, instead of that traditional Dracula that we know of as the suave, kind of sexy, dark, big cape, big hair, swooning kind of man, Nosferatu literally looks like a little goblin, almost like a Voldemort-y. I'm not a big Harry Potter person, but pointy ears.
No, but I was going to say
pointy
he
teeth,
looks like a
bald.
human. He looks like if a bat wished to be a real boy. You know what I mean? Like he's got like kind of fangs. He's got like the bald head. Like you said, his ears almost look like bat wings. Like there is this and he's just tall. He's like a tall, lumbering.
They actually, I don't know if
thing.
you watched the last American Horror Story double feature last year, and it was like the vampires and the aliens. It was a literally double feature. So half the season was one story, half the season was the other. And the first was on vampires, and they had these creatures, and they based those vampires, like the Daywalkers or something, off of Nosferatu. I actually auditioned to be one of those, and they were like, are you willing to shave your head? And I was like, yes. And now I'm like, thank God, no, I do not shave my head. But they, in the breakdown of the self-tapes, it was like they put think Nosferatu, and so if you've seen that, that's kind of what, but I would say Google it. It's a really classic look that Count Orlok has.
I think Salem's Lot, the Stephen King like TV adaptation of Salem's Lot, they also heavily leaned into the Nosferatu vampire look as opposed to like the Bela Lugosi Dracula, which it is really interesting to think about that, like throughout the history of cinema, those really are the two reference points when someone's doing a vampire. Is it's either like they're the cool, sexy, slick guy, or they are like a weird human demon creature.
And that this really did actually establish a lot of, like, we think a lot of our vampires and everything comes from Dracula, and it does, but there's some things which I have a list. I'm going to finish real quick the cast, and then I'll go and I kind of did a differences and similarities between Nosferatu and Dracula. But Count Orlok preys on the wife, who was played by Ellen Hunter. Sorry, not played by, the character is Ellen Hunter, and of his estate agent, who's Thomas Hutter. I didn't write who the actors and actresses were because you will all be like, cool, I don't care.
Yeah, minus Max Schreck, no one is really a noteworthy anything.
No, exactly. So, all right, so we're going to do a little compare and contrast game of Dracula and Nosferatu. So obviously we have Dracula and Count Orlok. And then the characters of Jonathan and Mina, who are in Dracula, are reflected through Thomas Hutter and his wife, Ellen. So they're almost kind of the same. The thing that's a little different, though, is Jonathan and Dracula is not the one that goes originally to Transylvania, to the castle, to do, like, the real estate deal.
Yeah, that's Renfield, right?
Yes. Yes, master. Basically, my expertise of Dracula knowledge always comes back to Dracula Dead and Loving It. Like, that's
100%.
That's like, I don't really know many Dracula films that well, but that one I know backwards and forwards, which I already told you when I was preparing for this. All I could think in my head was, yes, we have Nosferatu. We have Nosferatu today. It just came in the mail. So that's all I can think of. In Dracula, it takes place in Britain in the 1890s. Once they come home from Transylvania. But in Nosferatu, it takes place in Germany in 1838. So it does go into an earlier time frame, which kind of changes the style.
Do you think they also did that because they're like, well, when we get sued, we'll be like, no, our story happened before Bela Lugosi.
Look at they were trying to do a before my time kind of thing. They're like, we're going to do an Ovi Timesy version.
Yeah. Oh, no. What do you mean you own the copyright? I believe your thing was written in 1890, but ours was in 1838.
Exactly.
So technically, you owe us money now.
We were first. Exactly. No, and it takes place in a fictional German town called Wisborg, but it was filmed in Lübeck, just in case you wanted to know that. I know you did. No, but here's probably the biggest credit that Nosferatu has to our modern day vampires is Count Orlok dies by the sunlight. Ellen ends up sacrificing herself, which is very dramatic, to lure him into her room. He kills her, and then the sun rises and it kills Count Orlok, which all of you are going, yeah, it does. Sunlight kills vampires. Doesn't kill Dracula. In the original novel, the sunlight weakens Dracula's powers, but doesn't actually kill him. So the only reason that now we have that kind of sunlight killing vampires thing is from Nosferatu. So fucking hell, Twilight kind of had it right. I don't even, I think I've seen one Twilight film and I was like, I can't. You twinkle, you sparkle. You sparkle. That is the don't get me started. Anyways, so yeah, I thought that was really interesting though because of that. And then also Orlok only kills. Like if he's feeding off of you, Orlok just goes crazy and kills. Where Dracula can kill and suck your blood, but he can also turn people into vampires, which that didn't exist with Nosferatu. And then I already said Orlok is more of a monster animal-like with fangs, and Dracula's the suave, sexy, aristocratic womanizer, if you will. And yeah, Orlok does die by the sunlight, and Dracula is stabbed in the heart, which is also another way we know how to kill vampires. This is also an educational episode in case you ever run into a vampire. Now I'm just telling you how to kill them.
Yes. No, I think that that's very important.
We need to know that. Halloween's amongst us.
Yeah, Gelsey the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
So
exactly. But werewolves, you're fucked. I got nothing for you. Something about a silver bullet, right?
Silver bullets are pretty much it.
Oh, great. I have tons of those. There is some interesting, like, social commentary, I guess, of the time. But kind of some funny things. I have a theory. So Count Orlok brings not only himself that's going to cause terror in the film, but he brings a plague-infected rats that decimates the population, and there's more of a fear in the film about these, like, this plague than there being a vampire. And I was thinking maybe that's what COVID was all about. Maybe there's a vampire. I wrote in my notes, COVID vampire question mark. I'm just saying.
Because when was the bubonic plague?
It was more about, this is after World War I, and so the director had been through that, and then 1918 was the Spanish flu, and that killed 287,000 Germans alone. And so that's where kind of this influential thing comes in, where you're getting these dark vibes, if you will, and themes from after a world war and a really bad flu, which a lot of people have. I mean, that's the last pandemic that has hit as hard as COVID did. So, I'm not wrong, but there's that kind of influence where the director had just gone through these two things. And so actually Prana Films is who made this movie, and they were founded in 1921, and they wanted to produce occult and supernatural films. So everything was on the occult, was like what they were focused on. Nosferatu was the only film that they ever created, and they went bankrupt. Because I think they got sued.
All right, well then.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bad risk. This is a bad gamble on your brand new company.
Yeah, I know. Just don't make films on the occult, everybody. Actually do, please, because I want to watch them. But after World War II, critics did interpret Orlok's plague of rats as a metaphor for anti-Semitism in Germany. Which, that's a lot of, like, I could see it, but then it's sometimes after things are made and then decades later, people are like, well, I think this is a metaphor. And I'm like, okay, now you're just trying, we can make anything out of everything. I could, like.
Well, it's, is it Annie Hall? Is that the one where Woody's standing in line at a movie and he's listening to two people discuss Kurt Vonnegut books? And then he just brings Kurt Vonnegut out, and he's like, you've clearly never read any of my work because you're not even remotely capturing what I was trying to say in that book.
I think it is. What's so funny is I was thinking about Annie Hall today. The radio show that happened to be on in my car when I was going to get coffee was talking about it. And, like, that's so random. Oh, wait, rats. I have something to say about this, but
Oh,
So this is kind of fun. So there's all these rats in the movie. There was actually a casting call that they put an ad in the newspaper for rats. July 31st, 1921, Prana Film ran a newspaper ad and it said wanted 30 to 50 living rats. And the ad was successful and they got all those rats. They actually, like, could you imagine being like, oh, good morning, honey. Let me open up the morning paper and wanted, bring your rats. And you're like, oh, well, thank God I have this farm of rats finally.
yeah. At last, I've been waiting for this day.
So that
Oh
worked.
my God.
They filmed all the Transylvanian scenes in Slovakia, which is cool. And I know a little nursery rhyme about a shlimački, which is a snail in Slovenian. The things my brain knows and the things that I can't retain. It's great. Yeah. I think it goes like shlimački, mački, vistrec roški. If anyone can speak that language, and I just butchered that, I'm sorry, but that's a little song about a snail. Anyways. Oh my God, I'm on one today. The premiere sounded really cool. I really want to go back in time. Like, I have my question. I'm pretty sure I've asked you, Matt, before. If you had a time machine and you could go on a vacation, when and where would you go? And you can go to multiple places. And my first answer is always Cairo 1930s, just because, duh, like, go see Death on the Nile. I want to be there. I kind of want to go back in time and add this to my list of going to this event because it was done in Germany, March 4th, 1922. And it was in the Marmosal of Berlin Zoological Garden. Zoological. God, words are hard. And basically the Marmosal is the Marble Hall of Berlin is what it's called. And it was a huge, large society evening. And it was titled Das Fest des Nosferatu, Festival of Nosferatu. And the guests were asked to dress in Biedermeier costume. I don't know, period Central Europe from 1815 to 1848. I can't pronounce my whatever that is. But period piece costuming. And it was a giant ball, like a gothic Nosferatu ball is how they did the premiere. That's
perfect for you.
epic. I want to go to that.
That's some Gelsey Laurie shit right there.
That
if
is
there
some
ever
Gelsey
was
Laurie
one.
shit. I know. I was like, wait, dude, this just got dope. So that's really like the main facts about the film.
So there's only one thing that I want to talk about very briefly, and this is going to be like slide my glasses up my nose film nerdness. I do want to talk very briefly on German Expressionism because I'm sure at some point we could do a whole episode just dedicated to it. But as a person who really does like when I see German Expressionism in movies, I feel like Nosferatu is kind of tame on a lot of the stuff that you associate with that genre comparatively.
I don't know many movies in that genre. I'm not going to lie. Like, if you held a gun to my head and say, name one, not Nosferatu, I'd be like, well, looks like I'm dying. Like,
Oh, yeah. See,
don't know.
So there's like the big ones that I always think of are like the Golem, the Cabinet of Dr. Cavari, Metropolis, and M. The movie M with Peter Lorre. But like the tenets of, well, here's the best way to explain it. 80s Tim Burton was heavily inspired by German Expressionism. So it's
cool.
dark
Okay.
shadows, very bizarre architecture, like almost making things look intentionally like it's a set on a stage and less like it's in the real world, like very kind of fantastical production. And that's why I feel like this movie just feels closer to a universal horror movie than it does like exaggerated sets and like a lot of shadow play. Like there is definitely shadow play.
There's
for sure
shadow
in
play
this
for sure,
movie.
yeah.
But like I feel like the sets aren't nearly as exaggerated as like here's a still from like the Cabinet of Dr. Kilgore.
Oh, that
you know
looks
what I mean?
like
Like it's
super Tim Burton-y. That looks like the that reminds me of the Hall and Beetlejuice when they're trying to find the door that ends up back. Like, Barbara, we're home.
yeah, like almost paper mache sets. So I do think that this movie is definitely a part of German Expressionism, but I think it's on the tamer end, whereas like Dr. Kilgore is on the most exaggerated.
Yeah, Metropolis
side
looks
of it.
dope. I've always seen the posters for Metropolis, but I've never seen it. And I've always, even just by the poster, been like, I need to see this movie. What is it? And it looks so cool.
Here's the thing I love about I love about owning a few of these silent movies on DVD is that because there's really no dialogue, if you have a TV or a DVD player that can go to 1.5 speed, you can knock out these movies in about 30 minutes.
That's a smart way to do it because you don't really
And
need to
still
spend.
gain the like, yeah, you get to see all the visual craziness of it, but you're not like sitting there in essentially silence for 2 hours watching
watching
a movie with some pipe organ music. But
no, I'd probably put like the Rolling Stones on and try to like fill the sound.
Sync it up.
That'd be kind of fun. How like the Wizard of Oz and Dark Side of the Moon sync up. I'll be like, yo, Metropolis.
Ooh.
And
should we do an episode about that for the 50-year anniversary of Dark Side of the Moon?
I don't really like Dark Side of the Moon. I'm not a big Pink Floyd fan.
No, I'm not either, but I'm thinking talk about specifically, should we try to watch?
We should try. I've never done it before.
Should we try to do it?
I'd be down. We haven't even talked about the Wizard of Oz at all. I'm doing edibles before that.
Do you like to laugh, geek out on music, and learn all about that band or artist who had that one song back in the day, but then seemed to fall off the face of the earth? If so, you need to subscribe to One Hit Thunder. Together with an array of interesting and hilarious guests, we do a weekly dive into one-hit wonders like Eiffel 65's Blue, Krayshawn's Gucci Gucci, EMF's Unbelievable, Delamitri's Roll to Me, Los Del Rio's Macarena, Musical Youth's Pass the Dutchie, and even Patrick Swayze's She's Like the Wind. So are you subscribed to One Hit Thunder or what? As Desiree would say, you gotta be. And as K7 would encourage, you gotta come, baby, come and join in on the fun of the One Hit Thunder podcast.
Come, baby, come, baby, baby, come, come. Come, baby, come, baby, baby, come.
So, Gelsey, we definitely took some shots at Twilight, and some would say deservingly so.
Yeah.
But what I'm curious about is, do you have... I would say Twilight's probably both of our least favorite vampire movies. Do you have a favorite vampire movie?
I got dragged to see Twilight in the theaters by my dad. I was like, Dad, are you serious right now? Like,
I can't believe you're still friends with him.
I know. I was not happy. They've got a really good soundtrack, though. I'll give them that. But anyway,
I've looked at the soundtracks to all 4 of those movies, and I'm like, wow,
it's obnoxious. They're very good. And I'm like,
it's unfair how good these are.
That movie does not deserve you.
It's like, what is Iron and Wine doing popping up on the Twilight soundtrack?
I don't know.
But
anyways, do I have favorite vampire movies?
Vampire movies.
I do. I mean, there's a couple ties. Like, obviously, I'm going to say Dracula Dead and Loving It. It's my number one all-time favorite vampire movie. But it's always going to be Interview the Vampire. Like, when you tell me what do you imagine with a vampire, it's always Anne Rice vampires. Like, she's got it. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to see. And I want to see that lace and walking with canes with carriages. And I love New Orleans, so I always want to see them in New Orleans. And it's everything I want. I mean, Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, and Antonio Banderas all wearing lace with long hair vampires. Every time, sign me up.
I don't know. I do love the 80s vampire movies. I enjoy the stuff like Lost Boys and Fright Night. And
I like Once Bitten. I just watched that again. It's Jim Carrey's first movie. I love Once Bitten. It's horrible.
So I actually, there's another movie that came out the same year as Once Bitten, and it's almost the exact same premise, but I think it's a funnier, better movie, but it's got a worse title. Yeah, it's got a worse title, and it isn't starring a young Jim Carrey, so no one remembers it, which is a movie called My Best Friend is a Vampire. That's the movie that introduced me to the song My Future's So Bright I Gotta Wear Shades, because he had to start wearing sunglasses all the time in the movie. But yeah, it's almost the exact same plot of Once Bitten. It's insane. And then, yeah, like one that if you haven't seen it, I think you would really like, Gels, is have you ever seen Near Dark?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so Near Dark was a combination of a vampire horror film, a gothic romance, and a straight-up Western, where it's about a girl who falls in love with a vampire who basically runs with a gang of outlaw vampires that just like roam the countryside and just like will break into bars and just massacre the entire like group of people drinking in the bar for a night type craziness. And it's starring Bill Paxton as like the main villain vampire that's just got like a blood, like a taste for blood and murder. So it kind of, when they re-released it, the box art went from, when I was a kid, the VHS tape was literally like a burnt up Bill Paxton with just the words Near Dark over it. And then the DVD came out shortly after Twilight, and it was the most like, hey, we're trying to cash in on Twilight bullshit you've ever seen. Like, it was like a blue-black thing with like one guy's face half in light and the girl's face on the other side. And it was like, it was embarrassing how much they were trying to like sell it like another Twilight. But yeah, I think you would like how it gender bends, like, or genre bends like 4 different Yeah, that's the
awful,
wannabe Twilight
'cause
cover.
That compared to like that.
Yeah, like two
outta
different
here.
movies, like two completely different movies being advertised.
I can't. I hate I hate that. No, this looks good. It kind of reminds me almost of which is another vampire movie I like, From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yes, it's a little bit of that.
But I love it.
But yeah, I think you would like it. I think you would like just it does a good job mixing three very dramatically different genres and making it work. Now, if there's any vampire movies that we should have named that all the listeners are like, I can't believe we didn't name these, where can they let us know other vampire movies to watch?
Please let us know other vampire movies to watch on Instagram. You can find us at BeforeMyTime_podcast, or on Facebook, just type in Before My Time. Let us know what it is. Maybe it's, what is it? My Little Vampire? A Little Vampire? What's that title?
The Littlest Vampire.
The Littlest Vampire. Maybe that's your jam. Let me know. Yeah, and while you're here, let us maybe have a 5-star review. It'd be awesome. We love being able to reach out to new fans that love things that happen before their time as well. We appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in every week, and I hope you did really have a good Halloween. See you next week.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.